All right, welcome everybody to our May Forgotten Grapes Wine Club virtual tasting featuring Outward Wines, which we are so excited to have with us, Ryan and Natalie, the owners and winemakers of Outward Wines. Before we get underway, let me just make sure everybody is muted. Sorry, Roger, but you are going to be muted. And ground rules as always. If you have any questions or comments, please throw them into the chat. Allison and I will grab them as they pop up and ask our lovely guests those questions. At the end, we'll leave some time for you guys to unmute and chat with them if you want to. But we love to hear all of your questions. We want to know everything about what you're eating, what you're pairing with these wines, what you think of them. So please throw those out there in the chat. I know Allison has some big news that she spoiled already, but there's a few new people on the chat. So Allison, why don't you tell us where you were? You just got back tonight, and why you were there.
I got back yesterday from a 2-day trip to London. I got an award for my writing through the Wine Travel Awards. And my first time ever getting an award for my writing. So I got my little thing, an actual award.
Congratulations.
So
yes.
I got to go to the London Wine Fair,
Very
which
nice.
I went to last year too. And cool fair. A lot of brands, a lot of interesting wines from around the world.
Yeah.
The one representation of California wines were, no offense to my friend who I ran into pouring there, but they weren't that excited. They were good, but they weren't great.
Well, they're California wines that are, imported into England, so it's a much smaller pool than one would imagine.
Yeah, and then I will just say to anyone who wants to travel, it's wonderful. Flights are a little full going over. They're super empty coming back. Surprise, surprise. Which means that if you have economy, you might get 3-4 seats to yourself, which as I've had both coming home from Italy and London, it's been great. I've just lounged out and worked. So
very good
for economy travel right now.
So what award did you win, and what did you win it for?
I won it under the category of wine and food influencer. It was the Brightest Journey Award. If you get emails from me or are friends with me on Facebook or LinkedIn, you saw my shameless plug asking for votes. The top 5 votes in each category go to the finals, and then they have actual writer judges that pick, and I won in my category. So thank you to my friends who voted for me to get me there.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations. That is much deserved.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Speaking of award-winning and much deserved, let's talk about our featured winery of the month. That's what they call a professional segue, folks. We are so excited to have, and I think I've got this right, but if I butcher your last names, please let me know. Natalie Siddique and Ryan Pace. No, I'm kidding. I know it's Pace.
Sometimes, yeah.
In Italy, yeah.
You stumble on the easy one. From Outward Wines here. How are you guys doing tonight?
Fantastic.
Doing well.
Lovely evening on the Central Coast.
Thanks for having us.
Beautiful. Wow, you got that banter thing going perfectly. That's fantastic. Synchronicity. So we always begin our virtual tastings by asking our special guests, what is the most memorable bottle of wine that you have ever opened?
Ladies first.
Yeah, so for me, I think I've had a lot of wonderful bottles of wine, but I think the bottle that was really like an aha moment for me in my wine journey, and just what made me maybe fall in love with white wine in general, was a bottle of Nicolas Joly Chenin Blanc from the Loire Valley. It had a little bit of age. I think the vintage was like 2016. And those wines are very nervy and kind of wild and energetic in a way that I had never experienced before in a white wine. For those unfamiliar, Nicolas Joly is kind of a pioneer in biodynamics, biodynamic farming, and sort of one of the main kind of faces of that movement. And so, yeah, that's the wine for me. for sure.
Very nice. Ryan?
Yeah, for me, similarly, there's been many, but if I have to whittle it down, I was gonna say Domaine Rouleau Meursault from Burgundy. So Chardonnay from Burgundy. I forget the vineyard at the moment, but I believe it was a 2013. And the reason it really sticks out is because it was the first time that I really was kind of blown away and like found out what truly like minerality was in wine. You know, that's a word that was thrown around and is still thrown around a lot. But this wine was just like crystalline, pure, just incredible, like truly minerality. And it just like clicked in my mind. That was probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago or something that we had that wine.
I love the fact that two of the most memorable wines for both of you was a white wine, especially on International Chardonnay Day, as today is.
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice. Well, speaking of, see, we've got both Chenin Blanc and Sauvignon and Chardonnay represented with the first wine that we are tasting. And while we're tasting this first wine, I forgot to mention this in the business, but this is a good time. Both Natalie and Ryan recommend you two together. If one of you recommend it'd be weird. To take both of the reds, and if you've got time right now, put them in the refrigerator to put a little bit of a chill on them. They recommend having both of them with a bit of a chill. So bear that in mind. And before we move on to those, we'll take a quick halftime pause to allow you to pull those wines out of the refrigerator because, you know, we are providing a public service here. But right now.
And on that side note, while you give them that second, I would say that Nicolas Joly, I had the privilege to visit and meet him, and he is the father biodynamic. He is so incredibly intense about it that when he talks on a cell phone, he puts like a special blanket over him so as not to interfere with like an X-ray type thing. So not to get the waves and the energy and all that stuff.
Does it involve tinfoil inside of that blanket?
I have no idea, but there's he is very serious about the integration of technology and how it stay away from the biodiversity of the world.
Hopefully he's not like Jimmy.
Yeah, that's just an interesting telling thing of maybe why it stood out to me so much was probably a wine that I really felt the energy of the winemaker in. It like that to me, there's a distinction between sort of like real wine and commercial, like wine as a beverage. And so that was, you know, pretty early on in my like wine journey. And that was probably one of the first like true real wines I experienced. At least for a white wine, yeah.
Nice. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the Montaña de Oro. I should also point out I love Nicolas Joly's daughter's Angelina's movies. Big fan. So anyway, so yeah, this one 60% Chenin Blanc, 30% Sauvignon Blanc, 10% Chardonnay. So each of you gets a little bit of what you want. How did this wine come about, and kind of bigger story, since this is a Central Coast appellation, how did the two of you come to manage to land on the Central Coast and make wine? I believe you are, if not the only, then definitely the best winery in Grover Beach.
As far as we know, we are the only commercial winery in Grover Beach. Yeah, quite a journey. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, that's a big question.
And before you start, can you just clarify to everyone, where is Grover Beach? Because I remember coming to it and driving. I don't know if you had the same thing, Chris. You're driving down the road and you're like, there can't be a winery here.
I'm because I live up here, I'm a little more familiar with the area, but I did have that same idea. I mean, I know of Grover Beach, known throughout the Central Coast as one of the 5 cities, and also the only city that legally allows pot dispensaries, as far as I know, or at least the first on the Central Coast that allowed pot dispensaries. So
yeah, they're very friendly towards
pro-green for sure.
Yeah.
So maybe just to give a lay of the land, our winery is located in Grover Beach, which is just south of San Luis Obispo. Which, if you're not familiar with San Luis Obispo, it's halfway between Los Angeles and San Francisco on the coast. I would argue it's one of the most special parts of California is the entire stretch of the Central Coast. And so with that context, Ryan and I farm about 6 acres of vines, a few of which are on the San Luis Obispo coast in Arroyo Grande, which is just east of Grover Beach, and in Avila Beach, as well as San Ynez Valley, which is part of Santa Barbara County and where Ryan grew up. So that's kind of our farming footprint. But as far as sourcing, we source also from different organic sites from San Ynez Valley up to Carmel Valley. So while we're based in Grover Beach, we do kind of cover a large stretch of the Central Coast, partly because we love the diversity of this region. We can talk more about that later. But that's kind of the lay of the land of the grapes we work with and where we make wine.
Yeah.
And for anyone who came to the Festival of Forgotten Grapes that had a VIP ticket and got the Slow Wine Guide, as Natalie was just saying, they do organic farming. They are in that guide because of their farming principles.
Yes, and of course that's slow with a W as opposed to the Slow Coast, which is the newest appellation in the Central Coast, where you guys are tending your vines, I imagine, in that Arroyo Grande area.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, and the winery, just to explain a little bit further, the winery in Grover Beach, we've been in there for 2 vintages now, going on our 3rd. Prior to that, we were making wine with some good friends of ours in San Luis Obispo in another kind of urban industrial winery. We were there for 3 vintages. And before that, we kind of bounced around between like custom crush places in Santa Barbara County.
Gotcha. So how did the wine bug come to infect you guys? Tell us a little bit about your backgrounds, how you got into wine, and was owning a winery, making wine, something that you each thought of before you got together, or was it something that happened after you met and fell in love and got together? Hopefully you're still in love. Hopefully I'm not making a lot of assumptions. Yes.
We do everything there. We're together pretty much almost every hour of the day, maybe 23 hours a day. But yeah, so I grew up around wine. My dad was in the wine business, kind of still is actually. He was the GM for Stag's Leap Wine Cellars in Napa through the 80s and 90s.
Apostrophe or apostrophe S?
Stag's Leap Wine Cellars rather than Stag's Leap.
the winner of the 76 tasting.
Got it. Yes.
The good
Beautiful.
one.
Yes. The famous one, not the interloper.
So anyway, he was there, and I, some of my earliest memories were like setting off dynamite to build their caves and, eating Cabernet and Stag's Leap and stuff. So grew up around it, always thought it was cool, but it wasn't like, I didn't think, oh, I'm going to be a winemaker one day. After high school, I went to music school in Los Angeles for 2 years. And loved it, had a great time, and then moved home at one point and needed a job, kind of like summer. It was like end of summer. So going into harvest, and my dad was basically like, I'll put you to work tomorrow. And by that point, we were in San Ynez Valley. So it was harvest time, and I just kind of got thrown into cellar work and really like fell in love with the lifestyle and culture of the wine industry. And the work itself was really fun and interesting to me. And then I sort of realized and found out that every winery needs help during harvest. So I spent a few years, like 5 years basically, doing international harvests. So I jumped between the northern and southern hemispheres, worked in New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, France, Chile, Napa, all at different wineries, and learned a lot, had a really great time. And it's really cool. You just work really hard for 3 or 4 months, and then you get 3 months to travel, and then you go do it all over again. So I did that for a few years, and then came home and studied at Cal Poly, got a wine and viticulture degree there, and then worked for Byron Winery in Santa Barbara County for about 7 years. And in the meantime, Natalie and I had met through rock climbing, actually at our local climbing gym in SLO. And we started Outward basically as a side project in 2016, just with 2 barrels of Syrah. And that's where it started, from a little backyard vineyard at my dad's house in Santa Ynez, which we still make wine from, which is really fun and a cool part of the story. But yeah, it was really small for the first few years. And then 2020 into 21, we like really went full time into outward. Yeah. And then Natalie's got a totally different story.
Yes. Ryan maybe has like slightly more traditional entryway into wine. I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, the daughter of 2 immigrant parents. My mom was from Russia and dad from Bangladesh. So I just grew up in a very multicultural household. A lot of
But in
international.
Cincinnati.
But in Cincinnati, they were chemical engineers, and Procter & Gamble's headquartered there.
So you're a Skyline fan then?
I do. It's funny, this keeps coming up. I do Skyline. Again, I can't objectively say it's delicious, but subjectively, I mean, it's what I grew up on, so I love Skyline chili. But yeah, so I grew up in Cincinnati, and a lot of just international relations, political discussion, and just culture and travel was always a big part of my upbringing. So I knew I wanted to pursue a route in that realm for my career. So I went to Boston University and studied international relations and Russian and Eastern European studies.
Go Terriers.
Yes, go Terriers. And was on a pretty straight path to become a foreign service officer. That was something I thought I was really sure about wanting to do. So I did the State Department internship program. I spent a semester working and living in Russia. I then moved after school to DC and then to Bangladesh, worked for the UN Development Program through a program, then ended up doing journalism work and all these experiences for some small NGOs out in Bangladesh. And essentially, as I took my foreign service officer exam there, I had a very big internal change of heart. So all of a sudden, just those 6 months there had really changed my perspective about what I wanted to do. And my whole life, I thought I wanted to constantly be traveling every 2 years and moving and not be rooted in a place. And then I kind of just realized that wasn't actually what I wanted. And so I bought a one-way ticket to California and went rock climbing for a handful of months, just living on the road. I was doing trail work and just really just trying to reconnect with like what I wanted to do. And serendipitously fell into an opportunity through a Cal Poly entrepreneurship program to start a business with a friend who I had known for a very long time, who was starting a business in the climbing industry, which happened to be something I was very passionate about. And so I packed my bags and moved out permanently to the Central Coast. Ironically, with that same friend, I ended up starting this business. I had visited about 5 years prior and fell in love with a place called Montaña de Oro, which we'll talk about shortly with that wine. But yeah, so I moved out, and part of being and living on the Central Coast is being surrounded by agriculture and wine and viticulture specifically. So meeting Ryan through climbing was an obvious kind of entry into being surrounded by the wine world. And we had tasting groups, and I just was exposed in a very intense and like great way immediately. And it all just clicked, I would say, relatively fast. And I knew it was something I was interested in. So on the side of my company, I started working harvests for a few producers on the Central Coast. And then ultimately we ended up going and working a harvest in Chile together. And then we came back, and that's like when we started Outward in 2016.
Nice. So what has become of the climbing business? Do you still have it? Is it still active?
In about 2018, it was passed on to new owners. So it still exists and lives on, and I'm grateful for the experience. But yeah, it was time to move on.
You had an exit. That's better than a lot of entrepreneurs.
It was not like it was not a lucrative exit.
But it's an exit, and that's the thing.
It was something that was really cool to have done and experience. And honestly, like having an entrepreneurship experience prior to starting more or less, startup wine business was like very, I think, helpful for us.
Absolutely. So I have to ask, since you have such diverse backgrounds, Natalie, going through foreign service, and I imagine you were fluent in both Russian and Bengali before you traveled to those areas.
Fluent in Russian and studied Bangla when I was living in Bangladesh. I would definitely not say I'm fluent in the language, but I'm fluent in Russian for sure. And
Got it.
know some Spanish and French and
Enough to pick up, order in a restaurant, get directions to the biblioteca, and extract state secrets. I get it. Yeah.
Is Russian something that you learned? Was that something that someone in your family spoke that you learned as a child, or was it just what you learned in college on?
Yeah, I mean, it was what was spoken in the household. So both my parents, spoke to me in Russian.
That must have been fun for the neighbors in Cincinnati.
Yeah, no, I mean,
in the 80s and early 90s.
I definitely had a different set of food on my dinner table than most kids around me.
Yeah, Rocky IV and Red Dawn hit a little differently when you speak Russian in the
but I attribute a lot of my early, like, I'd say I have a good sense of just like tasting ability. And I think a lot of that, and sensing aromas and flavors, I think a lot of that is because I grew up in a household where I was having, a lot of unique foods and spices and flavors, and
absolutely.
That was something I was exposed to really early as a kid, and being in the garden, knowing what herbs smelled like and tasted like. And
and that's kind of what I want to get at is, given Natalie, your education experience in foreign service, Ryan, your background in music, have those educational aspects played any role in your winemaking? Have you found?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously music is an art. A lot of people argue winemaking is definitely part art and part science. And yeah, so they definitely play roles. And Natalie has a lot of, like, the foreign service and international relations stuff is really important with, like, running a business and communication. And there's tons of parallels, I think.
Very nice. So let's talk a little bit about the Montaña de Oro. For those that aren't aware, Montaña de Oro is is it a state park, or no, I think it's a state park. Yes, exactly. Kind of located just south of Los Osos, on the Central Coast. So right along the coast, kind of between Avila Beach and Los Osos along the coast, but very rugged, very beautiful space. How did you come to discover it and be so inspired by it that you named your white blend after it?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, it was one of the first places I'd ever visited I think it was actually as an adult, my first trip to California, and absolutely fell in love. It's breathtaking landscapes. There's dunes, there's 30 plus miles of rugged trail for mountain biking and trail running, incredible coastal bluffs. And why it's called Montaña de Oro is that during the springtime, the hillsides cover in orange California poppies, and so it means mountain of gold. And for me, that place is just encapsulates all the magic and beauty and diversity of the Central Coast that I think we both love.
Yeah, the wine also has the wine sort of like the way it expresses itself in flavor and aroma sort of reminded us of the place too, in a kind of esoteric way. But there is some like goldenness to it from the Chenin, I think. And it's just like bright and lively and pleasant. So it just sort of like made us think of Montaña de Oro.
Nice. So this particular blend, how did you guys decide upon it? Is this a consistent blend, or at least these three grapes are always part of Montaña de Oro? Or is this something that switches every year?
Yeah, so this is a new wine. Outward has always been fully focused on single vineyard, single varietal for as long as we've been making wine, basically. So this is kind of a departure from that. It's our first blend. We made a white blend and a red blend in the 24 vintage. Basically the three varieties were all fermented separately and blended before bottling. So the Chenin Blanc comes from Shell Creek Vineyard, which is on the east side of Paso Robles.
Very close to
plant.
its own super bloom area.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. Beautiful spot. Old vines planted in 1972, own rooted Chenin on limestone soil. So really, really awesome site for Chenin that we love. We've been working with it for a handful of years now. So that's 60% of the blend, and then 30% Sauvignon Blanc from Presqu'île Vineyard in Santa Maria Valley. So northern Santa Barbara County, really cold climate Sauvignon Blanc site. Really expressive site for Sauv Blanc, and then 10% Chardonnay from a vineyard called Rancho Arroyo Grande, which is on the slow coast. So they're all, the Chenin Blanc gets a little bit of skin contact, but they're all pretty much direct to press and barrel fermented in neutral oak.
Were these left? You make single bottlings of each of these.
Yep.
These are not 3 grapes that are typically blended together. So were they kind of leftovers and you thought, why not blend them? Was it intentional? And why more Chenin than other? I mean, what was the thought in that blend in the end?
Yeah, definitely intentional. I think so 24, we had sort of just a new composition of wines in the cellar. So as new vineyards, we started farming, and just the wine and barrel was different than years prior. So it was a good opportunity for us also to be creative. I think we love and will always be most inspired by single varietal site-specific wines, but it's fun to be a winemaker and get to blend also. So part of it was just wanting a creative outlet. Choice of grapes was sort of the composition of the final wine we wanted. Chenin is fantastic for its texture, and like it can offer this opulence and richness while still bringing freshness from especially the Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay. In the styles that we make those varieties, they're definitely more linear, bring a lot of acidity and brightness to the wine. So for us, I think we wanted a white wine that was very giving in the ways that Chenin can be, with some of these more like honeyed golden tones, but also to stay bright. Yeah, I think that's the reason for the Chenin dominance. And I guess the other reason for making a blend that, isn't necessarily traditional is that we are California winemakers, and that's sort of the beauty of making wine where we do, is there are no rules.
Yes.
And so we're still a very young wine growing region compared to many countries in the world. So I think it's part of why it's special, is we can do what we want and see what happens.
Yeah, clearly we know Natalie won this round in terms of getting to have her favorite grape prominently displayed in this one. So
yeah,
nice. Have you?
Ryan didn't do so poorly at 30%.
10%.
Oh, 10%. Sorry, the Sauvignon Blanc.
So Ryan did do poor, but that's okay. He's at least represented, which is nice. So, was this obviously working at Byron and other places? I know this isn't the first white blend you've ever made, but is this the first white blend you've done for Outward Wines?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. First blends. Yep. And then we'll taste the blend later, which is also brand new.
Beautiful. Well, we've had some great comments from this. David and Patty say this wine is delicious. It's everything we like in a white wine. Allison agrees, so much texture. Roger says that they are enjoying this with a chicken, spinach, and artichoke heart stew. Sounds weird, but we're enjoying it. And I think this is a good example of why blending can produce an excellent wine. Definitely that kind of the total is greater than the sum of its parts situation.
Yeah.
Nice.
Definitely.
And now, shrimp Provençal from Matt and Carrie.
Beautiful. Yes. Now you mentioned, you fermented all of these separately, barrel fermentations, little skin contact on the Chenin. When you put the final blend together, was there any additional aging that happened, either in barrel or in bottle, or was it kind of like, you tasted the wines in the barrel and this was time to go?
Yep, we racked from barrel to tank about a week before bottling, and that was it. So yeah, we do very minimal movement and racking in our cellar, just to give context to our winemaking approach generally. It's all native yeast fermentations. We do not fine or filter our wines, and we age it and ferment whites exclusively in old neutral barrels. So we don't have a single new barrel in our cellar. The youngest is maybe like 2 to 3 year old barrels, but most are 5 to 10.
Wow.
And yeah, to maintain like consistency, we make 15 different wines. So we like to keep our winemaking variables pretty simple.
So when you're bringing in new barrels, when you're expanding, are you buying used barrels, neutral barrels from other winemakers?
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I should point out, Jeannie and Mike, our resident vegans, are enjoying this with a vegan chicken a la king. So pairs lovely with vegan food. I have to, one of the things that I think shocked me most about your wines, we've had quite a lot of, and you know, I know you guys are in the Slow Wine Guide, but I don't know if you classify yourselves as natural winemakers or not. But I do want to talk about, how you guys got into the biodiversity. I think when we talk about the next wine, we can do that. But one of the things that just really amazed me positively about your wine is for no filtering, no fining, just the clarity of these wines. I mean, this is just beautifully clear, no sediment, no yeast, no cloudiness to it. The rosé, the exact same way, just crystal clear. Is there a technique that you guys use? Is it just a matter of really leaving a fair amount behind during the racking period to make sure you're not getting any yeast on it? But how do you maintain that clarity without filtering or fining?
Yeah. So
cold cellar for one.
Yeah, having a cold cellar is like really important for that. Getting fermentation done and then having a cold cellar so that there's no like activity essentially, and then very clean racking. Yeah, we use something called a bulldog, which is basically like a nitrogen displacement of liquid. So it's like a barrel wand that you put into the barrel and it pressurizes with nitrogen and then just displaces the liquid. And there's like you can kind of keep it a certain distance above the lees to just
lees cap.
make sure that it's like a super clean racking. And then, yeah, we typically do like save the lees as well. So yeah, it's critical to have the cold temperature and then just clean racking.
Yeah. Are you guys doing any, during the barrel fermentation, any batonnage or lees stirring with these?
Not typically, no. The only time we're stirring barrels is if the fermentation seems like it needs a little bit of a boost, it's moving a little slow, then we'll stir some barrels. But typically, we just age on the lees without any batonnage. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's got a fantastic texture, which I know, a lot of times that richer mouthfeel on a white wine comes from that stirring of the lees to add a little bit of that depth to it. But I imagine that could also be from the skin contact and the Chenin, and that Chenin is just sort of a naturally little bit more oily varietal, has more of that texture to it.
Exactly.
Yeah, we do a handful of picks. So, as I mentioned, part of what makes blends fun is that we get to be a little bit more creative in the cellar. But even with single varietal wines, one thing that we get to do to have sort of a diverse set of wine to put into the final single varietal and single site wine is multiple harvest picks. So this particular blend has more of the later pick. So there's sort of that more robust kind of honeyed, kind of later ripening Chenin aromatics, I would say.
Walk us through. Let's double click on that, because I think that's something that we've talked about before with other winemakers, but you don't necessarily know what. So multiple harvest picks, basically you're going back to that vineyard. How are you selecting which blocks or even which vines to pull from? How are you deciding when to come back? Is this something that you have in mind, or is it based strictly on the temperature, the conditions of that particular year?
Yeah, it's all of that. So when it gets close to harvest, we're going out to the vineyard at least once or twice a week as it gets closer. So we're tasting and sampling. We get analysis on grape samples. So we're checking sugar, acid, pH, and flavor, of course. So there's a lot of kind of just like checking in on the vineyard, and then we'll typically schedule an early pick and bring it in, and then you really get a good idea of the actual chemistry once you get that early pick in, and then definitely watching the weather and talking to the farmer, and there's a decent amount of logistics involved as well. So you kind of have to like get ahead of it and get on the schedule. And kind of plan things out for when you want to get your next pick and the next one after that. And yeah, the sum of those 2 or 3 picks is what ends up being the finished wine. But yeah, each pick is super different in how it expresses itself and the chemistry and in all of it. So
yeah, the other thing I would add, sort of like talking back to sort of natural winemaking in general, a lot of our pick decision and why, we have always a very early pick is we are picking a lot of times for acidity. So natural acidity in the grapes. We're not acidifying our wines. So that's incredibly important for making clean natural wines, is being able to have a healthy chemistry. So a lot of times how we're even picking the sites that we're working with is finding sites that we know have a natural balance that is going to work well for the wine, without having to manipulate the wine. So that's a huge component of our picking decision.
Yeah, I have to ask from a business standpoint, is that something that multiple picks, is that something that you kind of have written into your contract or an agreement with the grape grower up front? Or is it just that you're so familiar and you have such great relationships with these growers that they kind of expect that that's the way you're going to operate?
Yeah,
it's both of those things. It's also a volume thing. So like, if you're just buying like 1 ton from a vineyard, like they're not going to break it up into multiple picks for you. It's
Absolutely.
just not realistic. So yeah, specifically for Chenin, we buy enough volume that it like actually makes sense to split it up into multiple picks. So yeah, it's kind of all of the above, I guess.
Nice.
And yeah, as far as growing relationships, everybody we purchase fruit from is a friend and a trusted farmer and colleague. So that's one thing that is special about the Central Coast. I can't speak for other wine growing regions, but it is a very like community oriented and friendly community. So yeah.
Absolutely. I can second that as a Central Coast purchaser of grapes. I know how friendly it can be. And I definitely, with our next wine, I want to talk more about that vineyard selection and how it comes about and those relationships. But before we jump on there, I want to let you guys have kind of the final word on food pairings with this particular wine. We've heard some of the things that our members are eating with it, pairing with it, but what do you guys generally recommend pairing with this particular wine?
Yeah, all those pairings sound delicious. Part of how our approach to wine in general is for it to be food friendly. Wine to us goes hand in hand with food and should. So stylistically, and like all of our wines are meant to be food friendly. This particular wine, I think Chenin can handle so many different types of spices. So you can pair this with something like curry and it'll stand up to it because there's both richness, but also freshness and acidity. But yeah, fish dishes and anything fresher, I think, is a great pairing for this wine. Yeah.
Very nice. All right. Well, let's move on to our next wine, which does not have a fun and cool name. And I think you'll explain the reason for that. But this is the 2024 Grenache Rosé from the Two Wolves Vineyard in San Ynez. So rosé, was this always something that you guys were planning on working with, or at what point did you decide to make a rosé?
Yeah, actually, no to Grenache or Rosé. Those were both things that we didn't really plan to work with or make. We kind of joked a few years ago, like we were just like not big rosé drinkers. It wasn't like the first thing we reached for. But the opportunity.
Shame on you. Shame on you. And you lived in Europe too.
I agree. And so that's definitely changed over time. And the opportunity to work with this vineyard came to our table and visiting the site, the Grenache block made a lot of sense for us. I think both of us would love to someday make a red Grenache from the Central Coast, but I do think we are both quite picky about the site for Grenache. I think Grenache in California can be very challenging if it's not in the right climate and right soil. So we haven't found the perfect site for that wine. However, Two Wolves is a fantastic site for Grenache Rosé. It's located on the eastern end of St. Ynez Valley, essentially in Happy Canyon. It's just on the edge there. So definitely warmer days, but very cold nights because of that big diurnal swing. And it's planted in very rocky soils, nicely balanced amount of vigor. So you get nice concentration out of this wine. And the way we make this, we bring in the fruit, we foot stomp to get a little bit of color so it soaks on the skins for a few hours as we get the press ready. And then essentially it is direct press besides that short time on the skins, and then barrel fermented. We really like what that does for rosé and this wine in particular. So definitely intentionally made. This isn't a Saunier, this is direct press. We only make rosé from this wine, so it's very intentional. Yeah.
So I have to ask, what are your ideal specs for a Grenache site in the Central Coast? What would that vineyard have to have for you to say this is where we're making our red Grenache from?
I think the best Grenaches in the world that I've had are higher elevation and granitic soils, which is
There's not a lot of
very rare here.
Yeah, and what do you mean by granitic soils for folks who aren't familiar?
Yeah, so like granite rock as like a parent material.
Got it.
So it could be like decomposed granite soils or
That's not to say
sandy.
people aren't making great Grenache on the Central Coast. They are, but that's just like if we were going to make it, those are kind of the specs we would be interested in.
Yeah, you're leaning more towards like Gigonda, Vaccarese, some of that, like near the
No, more like Sierra de Gredos.
Okay, all right.
Cooler climate.
Cooler climate. Got it.
Western Spain, in the mountains. Those are our favorite Grenaches.
Yeah, those like really light ethereal Grenaches that are really amazing.
Very nice. Interesting. So this vineyard, we haven't really talked about it, but very famous owner of this particular vineyard. How did you come to discover this vineyard, or how were you invited to buy grapes from it?
Yeah, we have a really nice relationship with the winemaker there, who's been super friendly and generous with fruit.
I will say, just to interrupt, you've all met her because we did a virtual with her, Allison Levine.
Oh, nice.
Cool. From La Piane.
Oh, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, she's great. And yeah, the vineyard is kind of like Coastal, which is like a kind of bigger grape farming company, sort of manages the sales for the vineyard. So we work with them. And then the vineyard is also consulted in terms of viticulture by Steve Mathiasen, who's also kind of a prominent figure in the California wine scene, has been for a long time, and is doing great things with farming and pushing the industry forward in really good ways. So yeah, it's a certified organic site. Pink, the owner that you alluded to, the singer Pink,
Alicia Moore, yes.
Alicia, yep. Yeah, I think her vision with that property is really cool, and putting the effort in to do things the right way, and yeah, it's just an inspiring site for a lot of reasons. So it just kind of landed in our court, and we took the opportunity to make some rosé.
Yeah, that's fantastic. She is truly one of the celebrity winery owners who has been from day one really involved in the process. I mean,
oh yeah, very legit.
She's not just somebody who licensed her name or is getting a royalty off of everything, but she is truly involved.
Let's remember, she was studying for her WSET certification while on tour. She would perform and come off stage and study for wine. She took it seriously.
That's awesome.
But you know, our kids grow up on the vineyard, so obviously it's really important how they farm. And she made, I mean, the wines are great. Last month, I believe, we had more wines from that vineyard.
Yes.
Cool.
So
yeah, no, it's delicious, and it sounds like is this one of those relationships where you're going to keep making rosé from it? I mean, it's definitely going to be part of your portfolio moving forward.
Yeah, that's the plan. Yep.
Yeah, we've been really happy. This is our second vintage making this wine, and we are actually sold out of it. So,
sorry, everybody, can't buy any more of this. You have to wait for the 25.
Yeah, maybe a few bottles remaining for direct, but yeah, really excited about this site, and we'll definitely continue to make this wine.
No, it's a beautiful rosé. As a you know, rosé was one of the first wines like that really sort of inspired me in winemaking, and it just like the color is beautiful, but it's got that nice balance of, you know, California fruit, but more of that European acidity to it. So it's not overly cloying, but at the same time, it's not that like bone dry, super citrusy European style. It's got a really nice balance between the two.
Yeah, nice.
And like the first wine, both wines have great texture. So
yes,
I think your wines have texture, which makes them food friendly and everything you were saying. But
yeah. So how do you guys go about vineyard selection? Is it just through your own networks, or are there certain vineyards that you're targeting, that you know there are vineyards and grapes that you want and you kind of seek them out? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a handful of things, like everything. In part, it really starts with the fact that less than 5% of vineyards in California are farmed organically. So that number is probably pretty accurate. Obviously, that might just be certified, but yeah, in general, it's a very small pool that we're starting with. I think especially maybe on the Central Coast. So that is a very easy elimination of vineyards that we won't work with. And so it's partially that, and then it's finding the sites that we think are well suited for the varietals that we want to work with. Sometimes we're looking for a varietal and looking for a site that sort of matches the parameters and specs that we think will make great wine. Other times the vineyard opportunity comes to us and we say, okay, what makes sense here that we can make and be excited about?
Right. The old, hey, I've got 2 tons of something from this vineyard that I can't get rid of. You guys want this?
Yeah, yeah. But we do try to work with vineyards in general that we have longevity with. We definitely want to be able to make a wine for vintages and vintages. Because part of the magic of wine is being able to see that evolution and understand, you know, these like chapters. Essentially, I always look at, to me, wine is an amazing way of understanding and getting to know what each year brought, climate-wise and in the cellar. So if we don't get to do that with the same wine, it's kind of, it loses its charm, I think, if it's just a one-off.
You said 15 different bottlings?
Something like that. We haven't actually like counted, but we keep saying like around.
I think it's around
15-ish.
And aside from the 2 blends, it's all single varietals, single vineyard. Are there any grapes that you'll make? Like you said, you bring in a lot of Chenin Blanc. Are you making more than one bottling of Chenin Blanc, different styles, or is it single bottles? Each grape gets one wine.
Yep.
Yeah, we did have a couple Chenin sites for a little while, and then we made like a skin contact Chenin, and it just got to be a little too many Chenins. So, so yeah, we're making one of each at the moment.
Nice.
And I remember last year when we talked, you had some new exciting grapes coming on board, the kind that get Chris excited.
Yes, we'll talk about those at the end. Let's save that towards the end, because I always love that. But one of the things I did want to know is, and of course now I've forgotten that because you got me so excited about Forgotten Grapes. It was, I don't know. It'll come back to me, I'm
Sorry.
sure. That's okay. That's okay. Let's talk food pairings. That's a good segue. Let's talk food pairings with this particular rosé. Given that you are not rosé people, or you were not rosé people to begin with, but you have evolved into rosé people, what would you pair with this particular wine?
My like classic rosé pairing would be like a beet salad.
Okay.
I'm a big beet fan. So yeah, that's kind of like my go-to.
Rosé is like really the best wine for salad. Like salad is a really hard thing to pair things with because of the acidity and just like raw vegetable nature of it. But rosé is kind of like, you can pair rosé with so many things. It is incredibly versatile. You can pair rosé with barbecue, but you can also pair it with a fresh salad. And I think that's part of why it's a really versatile category in general.
Yeah. I remembered my question, which was 15 unique bottlings, 15 SKUs. Is that kind of your upper limit, or do you have a set number in mind of kind of where you want the winery to be in terms of bottlings?
No rules per se, but that should be our upper limit. I think it's a lot of wine.
I mean, no rules, but yeah, it's more kind of what you can handle. Like, feasibly you could have 1,000 plates spinning on a stick at the same time, but you may not be able to handle it.
We can like handle them, like it's fun, it's like that's what kind of keeps us going in a lot of ways, because we're like curious and love all kinds of wine. So if we could make a little bit of everything, we would, but it's not the easiest thing for business either. So
there's a practicality component, but we're extremely curious people, and we also don't want to be known for just like one grape or one type of wine. We really like to sort of like what we're talking about, be able to find something that pairs well with the right meal and the right weather. We want to have a wine for every occasion.
Yeah, and this one you did put on the label 144 cases produced, of which are sold out. The Montaña de Oro, what was the case production on that one?
It's like 240.
Around 240, yeah.
Okay. Is that pretty common for you guys, that kind of a small number, like 240?
It's a pretty big range. There are some wines that are more like 500 cases, and then there's some as small as
1 barrel.
Yeah, 1 barrel. So, just depends.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful. Yeah. Matt and Carrie are enjoying slow baked salmon with dill raspberry sauce with this one.
Perfect pairing.
That does sound like a perfect pairing.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around dill raspberry sauce, but
that's great. I love dill. Dill.
Is that like you have the raspberry sauce and you put the dill in it, or is it like a creamy, like, because when I think of a dill sauce, I think more like creamy, especially with salmon.
Creamy.
Okay.
Yes,
creamy. Yes. Yeah. Creamy. See, sound language. Creamy. Okay. Got it. Yeah. All right. We'll answer that. We'll answer that question at the end to go with that. But let's move on to the red selection. So we're heading to the northern end of the Central Coast with this next one.
Dijon mustard, Chris.
Dijon mustard, beautiful with the dill. Yeah, that makes sense with salmon. Perfect. So your Cabernet Franc, a forgotten grape of the Bordeaux variety, which is fantastic. 2023 from the Massa Vineyard in the Carmel Valley. How did you guys find this vineyard, and how did you decide on producing a Cabernet Franc? Definitely kind of a zag grape when everybody else zigs.
Yeah. So Natalie and I have always really enjoyed Cab Franc. Just the expression of the grape, like kind of across the board. A lot of the Loire Cab Francs have kind of inspired us. We love like the little bit of pyrazine in the grape that gives it that kind of little bit of a green tone, bell peppery sort of flavor sometimes. We think that's kind of important for the grape and important to kind of distinguish it as a unique wine. And so we've been making Cab Franc from a couple of other vineyards since 2019 and moved to Massa in the 23 vintage, which is
So
that
this
wine.
particular wine, yeah, this is the first Massa vineyard.
Exactly. And Massa came to us through our friend Ian Brand, who was kind of managing and doing grape sales for the site.
We featured him and featured his Cab Franc from Massa Vineyards a few years ago. Yep.
Oh, nice.
Cool. Yeah, Ian's great. We love working with him. So Massa is just a really incredible site. It's a really old vineyard site deep in Carmel Valley, really high elevation, and it's a large vineyard. There's something like 90 plus acres of vines, and some really old Cabernet Sauvignon planted in 68 there, and some 71 blocks. This Cabernet Franc is from the 90s, planted in the 90s. In a different section of the vineyard, but we also make Cabernet Sauvignon. So when we first found Massa and were introduced to the site, it was for Cabernet Sauvignon initially. This is Pierre.
This is the other.
Once was a dog named Pierre.
Pierre intermission.
Nice. Are you familiar with the "I'm Really Rosie" song by Carole King called Pierre?
We are now. We'll have to find that.
I highly recommend looking it up. It's a fantastic song that I grew up with as a child. But enough about me. Let's talk Cab Franc and Massa.
Yeah. Massa is just a really insane site. It's planted in 68 for the Cabernet, and it was organic from day one, dry farmed, and just high elevation. It does have some of the granitic soil components up there. Mm-hmm. Basically just east of Big Sur, a couple of ridges. So a really unique spot. So coastal high elevation Bordeaux variety.
Super cool. Yeah. Very, I imagine, not a lot of sunlight. So that high Parisine kind of Loire Valley style. Or Cab Franc.
Yeah, it comes through.
Still the kiss of California sunshine.
Sure.
And the way that we make Cab Franc and have since 2019 is we do 50% whole cluster. So we'll do whole clusters on the bottom of the fermenter, and then destem on top, the other half. And we just do like very gentle extraction, just like really light pour overs with a pitcher, basically, so that we don't extract too much of the green and too much of the tannin that you can get from whole cluster. Mm-hmm. And then it's on the skins for about 3 weeks. And so the whole clusters underneath do have like a little bit of carbonic effect, just from like not getting crushed. So it kind of makes it like a little bit lighter and juicy, but still gets all the darkness and complexity after 3 weeks. So, and then aged in neutral oak. So again, all of our wines are neutral oak, so they don't get any like toasty oak influence.
Nice. So how did you guys sort of come upon Chenin Blanc in 2019? How did you decide that this was a grape that you really wanted to work with? Was it kind of, Natalie, obviously you have a love of the Loire Valley based on your Chenin Blanc, predilection. Was it based on that, or was it just
in that case, it was definitely an interest in working with Cab Franc and finding a good site for it. I guess the other backstory to that wine is the vineyard we previously worked with. We needed a site that was going to farm organically. So Massa was like a very obvious, great choice for it.
Nice. So how did you guys kind of decide to embrace organic winemaking? Was that something that you knew going in before you started Outward that you wanted to focus on, or was it something that evolved over time as you started to make wine and realize this is kind of what you wanted?
Yeah, it's been an evolution. When we first started, not everything was organically farmed. And I think there's been a big push with our generation, like in general, toward just sort of knowing where your food comes from, knowing where your beverages come from. It's kind of similar, and just like sort of being inspired and being more mindful about how things are grown and how things are processed and what you put into your body is kind of important. And I think we're all just kind of learning more about that. And, it's definitely a process, and, not everything's perfect about organic farming all the time, but I,
Right.
I think it's the right direction. And yeah, there's just like so much to learn about, and it's really just like a respect for the land and respect for the people working the land, to not have to use gnarly chemicals. And I truly, like, at the end of the day, I think it makes better wine.
Yep.
So, and a lot of the wines that we're inspired by in the old world, or like our friends' wines, are from organically farmed sites at minimum. And it just like, you just sort of pay more attention to the vineyard, I think, when grapes are farmed like that, rather than just like farming by recipe, or just sort of standard conventional wisdom of just like getting crop and business and money. It's more just like intentional farming and quality grapes and better wine. So
Yeah. Patty and David would like you to describe the nose of this wine for them.
Yeah, this wine for me always has like some higher toned red fruits, so it can be a little bit like cranberry and brambly, pomegranate, goji berry. There's always the obvious thread of pyrazine in there. In this wine, it's kind of more of like a roasted chili rather than like a green bell pepper, I would say. And then sometimes there's like a tea component, like a green tea, a tea leaf feature to it.
Higher toned red fruit is an expression I've never heard before, but I am absolutely using from now on. Things are definitely higher toned. Like this is a higher toned plum and red cherry on this. Is what this is.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
I don't know.
Allison,
I've
sorry,
used
go ahead.
that before when I have to write a note, high toned fruits, and it's just, yeah, you can taste it. But I think your description of the kind of a roasted chili is right. It's so well integrated. You get that herbaceousness, but it's not out of joint or overpowering. It's just in there in sort of a really kind of inviting, savory way.
nice.
Cool.
So when you guys are looking at new vineyards, looking to expand, do you have certain thresholds, certain requirements for a vineyard? And how do you determine whether a vineyard kind of suits your level of organicness or not? What's your criteria?
Yeah, for one, knowing your grower, knowing what their ethic or like what their approach to organic farming looks like. As Ryan mentioned, there's a very big spectrum of organic farming, and organic doesn't always mean better or perfect, as he said. So for one, it's sites that are more climatically suited for organic farming. They are going to have a lot less impact. So the sites we farm in Santa Ynez Valley, those don't even see a spray. They don't see tractor passes. There's a lot more opportunities for, regenerative practices to make a difference in sites like that. But there's also the balance of like finding the climate that also makes delicious wine. So yeah, I think foundationally we care about what the spray regimen looks like, what sort of, obviously in organic sites, you can spray copper and sulfur to oblivion, but that isn't a great, in our opinion.
That can be bad.
Yeah, exactly. So understanding that, at the end of the day, I also respect, we farm our own vines and know how challenging farming and humbling it can be. So I truly respect all grape growers and all farmers of any kind, because it's not easy no matter what approach you take. But I also, Ryan and I trust the growers that we're working with to make the decisions that are best and well suited for the vineyard they're farming. Nobody knows their land better than the people that are farming it. So, there's criteria that we're interested in and care about. But I also, wiggle or give,
You've got a little bit of wiggle room or credence to wineries that are, putting in an effort, but maybe aren't exactly where you want them to
Yeah,
be.
and we love to see
I mean-
certification, obviously, but that doesn't make sense for every vineyard site. So
Right.
for tiny, 2-acre vineyards, I don't expect people to, go through the rigors of cost necessarily and all of the compliance reporting that you need to do. It just doesn't financially make sense for someone to do that in a scale like that. But certification is also a commitment to what you're doing. So
Right.
the answer is always, it depends.
Well, the real like simple definition is just like no synthetics is like a real basic level of it for us. No synthetic sprays at all. So that's just like the bare minimum kind of basics of organic.
On it. So nice. Yeah. At least you've got that kind of threshold for it. Ryan, you obviously grew up in vineyards and kind of farming. Natalie, I imagine it was new to you when you first sort of jumped into the mix. So how did you take it? You mentioned you're farming 6 acres, and then obviously you have your father's vineyard in Arroyo Grande. I don't know if those are the same vineyard or separate vineyards, but is having your own vineyards, a larger plot of vineyards of your own, is that something you guys are striving for, or are you happier kind of picking and choosing and finding the right growers for you?
Yeah, it's going to remain a combination because we do like kind of spanning the Central Coast, and we do like a lot of the growers that we work with. So we're definitely not like trying to only farm our own grapes. We do like to reach beyond just our super local sites. And then in terms of like farming our own spots, really like land in this area is insanely expensive. So the idea of like buying our own vineyard is like kind of out of the question.
Right.
Unless you guys buy a lot more wine.
Thanks, Obama. No, I'm kidding.
But yeah, so what that does allow us to do is like find these little home vineyards. A lot of people on the Central Coast in Santa Barbara County and in SLO County have little home vineyards that are maybe half an acre, maybe 3 acres, or whatever size they are. So we've kind of just been like scooping up these little home vineyards and farming them ourselves and getting the fruit from them. And each one is kind of a different arrangement with the owners. But yeah, that's been a really cool way for us to sort of acquire these little vineyard sites throughout the Central Coast and make unique wines from it and control the farming and all the winemaking and just sort of the supply of the fruit,
Yeah.
It's kind of been important for us. So
Because right now a little over a third of our production or at least in 24 was grapes that we are farming. So I think like we want to continue to grow that. I think like a 60-40, 70-30 split at the end of the day would be really cool. And finding a slightly larger site would be great as well. So right now, most of the vineyards are around 2 acres or 2 to 3 or in that sort of space, which is really great also because, farming in San Ynez is so different than farming in Arroyo Grande. So we get like a full diverse experience when we're out there. And we're constantly learning. I think, the regenerative conversation is still so new in viticulture, and we're all learning so much together. But I think, for us, the fundamentals that we're doing is cover cropping and composting under vine, trying to minimize the impact of if we have to spray, what that looks like, and tractor passes. Every year is a full learning experience. So
nice.
Are you handpicking in all of the vineyards?
Yeah, 100% of our grapes are handpicked.
Yeah. Do you guys know Ethan Etnier and Etnier Wines in Arroyo Grande?
No,
no.
Not familiar.
Okay. We featured him a couple of years back in our he's got a small little backyard 2 or 3 acre parcel, and he's growing Pinot Noir and Syrah side by side and doing basically monopoles of each, but they're delicious. I'll have to put you in touch with him because he's a
Cool.
great guy
Nice.
and just a really interesting vineyard. I do want to ask your thoughts. You kind of mentioned, you were talking a little bit about it, Natalie, the ROC, the regenerative organic certified certifications that have become, I won't say, very popular, sort of trendy, but it seems like more and more wineries are starting to achieve it. And at the same time, you used to have what was the SIP certification, which I know went a little deeper because it was more involved with the labor and more the business practices of it. But what are your thoughts on both of those?
Yeah, unfortunately, with SIP certification, you can spray Roundup, you can spray herbicides, which is, I think, for us, just like an absolute no for the planet and for anyone. I just think it's not a great thing. I think there are some really positive things under SIP certification, but for us, that's not really like a defining certification for like the quality of farming in a vineyard necessarily.
Right.
Yeah, with the regenerative stuff, obviously it has become more top of mind in discussion. I think
it
yeah,
does feel like to me that like it's the bigger wineries that seem to be doing it. It's not necessarily the small guys, and I don't know if it's because of the financial commitment or whatnot. But
well, yeah, the cool thing about regenerative farming is it works on a small and big scale and can help. It can be good for everyone. And I think that's why it's a new and more appealing thing than necessarily just talking organics only. So yeah, I think we're super supportive of it. I think I'm glad to see it being a growing movement, but like anything, there's also caveats of like what actually makes sense and what is trendy. So for example, like grazing is an awesome thing if it makes sense in the context of your vineyard site and it's like not a burden to necessarily like bring these animals. Like
right.
there's always questions like, are you then trucking
Yeah.
animals from 100 miles to get them there?
Leaving
And
a carbon footprint to get them there.
Not just
Exactly.
the carbon footprint, but remember, animals eat and then they poop. So if they eat one place that isn't, well, they're pooping into a vineyard what they've eaten in another vineyard, and that influences that potentially. I mean, it's all about.
That's true. It could be Sanionese grass they're eating, and then they're pooping in Arroyo Grande, and that might not.
But if somebody's not as clean as they say they are, and bring sheep in, and there's a disease, or they're using something and that's in their soil, and the sheep eat that, they could be putting those chemicals or whatever it is into another vineyard, unknowingly. And so you have to be careful if you're bringing in animals from the outside and don't have your own on your own property.
Yeah, so I guess the answer is it's the farming discussion is so not black and white when it comes to organics in general. Like I said before, I think it's really understanding like the intention of the farmer and what they are trying to do. I think anybody who is trying to make the land that they're farming better than they find it. Sorry, our puppy just found a squeaky
that's
toy.
okay. Pierre's saying I don't care.
So yeah, anyone I think that is their intention is to find a place and farm it better than they found it is going to be doing the right thing for the vineyard site. Certifications aside, all of that, all aesthetics aside. I think, if you love your land and wanted to be a healthy place, you're going to care to do the right things for it.
Nice. I did forget to call halftime for people to pull the reds out. So we have had some questions about why are we chilling the reds?
Yeah, we are. I think we're both kind of sticklers on wine temperature and the service temperature of wine. I think it's like really important and dramatically affects your experience with the wine. And yeah, I would say across the board, like our wines are sort of made in a fresher, lighter style, like as a generalization. And I think that they're more pleasurable to have like a slight chill. So it's kind of just like mimicking cellar temp, basically. We like red wines to be served like around 55 to 60 degrees. And then, so it's like slightly chilled, and then it warms up in the glass, and you kind of get to enjoy the sort of lighter. And a lot of like, you think of like some restaurants where like the wine is stored in the sun on a shelf or whatever, and it's a hot day, and you order like a big ripe red wine, and it's like, 73 degrees or 75 degrees. And it's like, it's just a totally different thing than drinking it at cellar temperature. So,
Right.
And it will, yeah, like Ryan said, it's going to warm up in your glass. So it just actually gives you a larger sensory experience from tasting it and smelling it when it's slightly chilled, and then tasting it slightly warmer over time.
Patty, the best tip for your home is put your white wines in the fridge a couple hours and take them out 20 minutes before you want to serve them, and put your red wines in 20 or 30 minutes before you want to serve them and take them out. It'll give them just the chill they need, and the whites will be chilled down. They're going to warm up on the table. So that's always the best way to do it. And if you have a wine fridge, you set it to 55 degrees.
Anywhere between 50 to 55 is usually, yeah. And they now make the dual zone wine refrigerators, so you can set your whites a little bit colder, 48, 49 degrees, and set your reds a little warmer at 53, 54. So they
technically your refrigerator, your food refrigerator, is too cold for proper storage. It's not, your wine's not going to age. It doesn't do anything in the fridge. And if you're opening the door and closing it constantly, the temperature, they're in the door. But if you always throw your whites in good hour or two before, and then take them out 20 minutes, and then the reverse with the reds, you'll be in good shape anytime you're serving wine for people. Or yourself.
There you go.
Yeah,
hints from Heloise.
All of them.
Nice. So to just stick a cork in this wine, let's talk food pairings with this this Cabernet Franc. I keep wanting to call it Chenin Blanc, and I don't know why. Got Chenin Blanc on the brain.
Natalie's kind of our food pairing guru. Like, for some reason, like duck came to my mind.
Okay.
Like a duck with some sort of like a fruity little sauce or something.
Yeah. Well, Matt and Carrie are having pork loin with strawberry salsa.
Pork loin. Great. Yeah, I actually think Cab Franc can stand up to like Mexican food, and those kind of flavors also kind of well because of that, slight pyrazine.
Yeah, I find the pyrazine and Cab Francs with their higher acidity, like if you've got meats or vegetables that have a little bit more of a saltiness quotient to them, they tend to really stand up nicely to anything that's got a little more salt, like pork. Even duck, has a little bit more of that savory kind of saltiness to it. So that makes total sense. All right, before we move on to the next wine, I have to ask you guys, and this is just a me question, about your corks, because these are some of the tightest corks I've ever pulled out of bottles. Very impressive in terms of their air quality, but they've definitely like expanded and are nearly impossible to put back into the bottles. So is there a specific cork company you're working with, or something you were looking for corks, or is this just, am I just, sort of talking out of turn?
Yeah, no, we've noticed that as well. So we work with DIAM, DIAM, and they're a company that makes conglomerate. So it's like natural cork that's been treated with this supercritical CO2 process that removes any sort of cork taint, TCA, and all the other whatever. There's like 16 different compounds that can be cork taint, basically, for natural cork. So it removes all of that. Kind of the same process that like decaffeinates coffee. So kind of a unique process. And that just comes from Natalie and I having, dozens of wines over our careers that have been corked, and just like such a disappointment as both the consumer and as a wine producer. To have like your customers drink a wine and not realize that it has a cork problem, and to just think that it's like a not expressive, like bad, weird tasting wine is just like kind of devastating. So that's sort of where the initial move to DM comes from, to avoid that problem. And these corks specifically on the 24 wines are, so we bottled those wines about 6 weeks ago or so, 7 weeks ago. So they're pretty tight just from like being freshly bottled.
Yes.
The corks haven't, like, they've only been squeezed in that position for a relatively short time. And then the other thing about these corks is they're held together by beeswax. So it's a natural adhesive basically for the conglomerate cork pieces. And I think, yeah, just the elasticity of these corks specifically are a little tighter than others. So yeah, it does help to, like, when you pull the cork out, to flip it upside down and stick it back in kind of right away. And that side typically goes in a little easier.
Yeah, that's not happening with the cork for this Sendero Luminoso that I have right now.
Not to slurp it down.
Yeah, clearly I'm just gonna finish this tonight. Too bad. So Sendero Luminoso, what does it mean?
Yeah, so Sendero Luminoso translates to shining path. It is named after a rock climb in El Potrero Chico, Mexico. It's a pretty wild place with big jutting 1,000+ foot limestone walls. And we climbed a famous route there called Sendero Luminoso 2 years ago. And very just iconic rock climb for anyone in the climbing community. In the middle of the wall, there's this giant palm tree that juts out that you can actually like stand on. So it has this like outlier moment in it. And Ryan and I also just spent this past January climbing in the mountains of Argentinian Patagonia. So, you know, the label you see, the Patagonia label you see, we were climbing in that range. And so, yeah, the art and the name just like felt like the right name for this wine. And so, yeah, I mentioned this outlier palm tree, and that's because this is essentially a play off of a GSM, so the classic Rhone blend. But instead of Grenache, we're using a very rare Rhone grape called Vaccarese, not Vaccarese, which is the region. It's a totally different thing. This is the varietal called Vaccarese. And so it's one of the 13 grapes of Chateauneuf. And Tablas Creek brought over cuttings from Chateau Beaucastel and planted them both at Tablas and at Old Oak. So there's 1 acre planted here. It's located on the west side of Paso in the Willow Creek district. And we split the grapes with Lone Madrone. It's farmed by Jordan Collins, who's also a rock climber and close friend of ours. So that's 30% of the wine is Vaccarese, 60% Syrah from a vineyard we farm in San Ynez Valley called Starfire, and then 10% Mourvedre from Rancho Arroyo Grande on the Slow Coast. So again, very specific sites for this blend, and 3 separate appellations that really we consider home.
So we know your disdain for Central Coast Grenache. Is that part of the reason why Vaccarese came into the equation, or how did you come to discover it and decide to blend it in?
Definitely no disdain for Grenache on the Central Coast. That's definitely not why. We make a single varietal Vaccarese as well, and it's a super fascinating, awesome wine to get to make. But its natural role is a blending grape in the Rhone, so we wanted to sort of see what it does in that natural habitat. And yeah, in being just creative, I mean, Ryan and I spent weeks and many, many hours playing with blends that we thought would work well. And to us, this has like all the things we would want out of a Rhone blend, which is like depth of fruit, darkness, but also lightness and brightness on its feet. So yeah, that's the Sendero Luminoso.
Yeah. And then why lead with Syrah? I mean, that's a bigger, heavier grape. Typically GSMs heavier on the G, the S and the M, because of their weight, their color, their depth, tend to be more of a smaller percentage. So why flip that on its head?
Yeah, so our style of Syrah isn't necessarily like big and gnarly. We in 2024, I kind of mentioned part of the reason we were able to make blends was a different composition in the cellar.
Mhm.
So we took over the farming of a vineyard that has 2.5 acres of Syrah, which is quite a bit of Syrah, especially when we already farm another Syrah vineyard, which gave us an opportunity to vinify and pick many different ways. So we did a little bit of carbonic. We did some early pick. We just had a lot of different pieces of Syrah, if you will, to work with for this wine. And Vaccarese actually is, although like actually surprisingly tannic, despite being large, clustered, and berried, has a lot of like super bright red fruit and almost this like floral orange peel component. So it really was just a matter of like after blending, what we thought made the most interesting and delicious wine, and that happened to be Syrah dominant.
Nice. We've had several questions about your label art. Folks want to know who does it. Obviously, lots of mountainscapes on it, given your passion for rock climbing. I imagine that's tied into it. But tell us a little bit about how the labels come to be.
Yeah, so definitely mountainscapes are inspired by our rock climbing and just sort of spending time outdoors. They're all kind of like abstract landscapes that kind of remind us of specific places, or they're just sort of remind us of the feeling that the wines give us, in a sense. And the art is all done by this sort of digital nomad couple called Space Frog Designs, and their name is on the side of our bottles. So each art piece gets a little credit on it.
There it is.
Yeah, Space Frog Designs, they're awesome. They have a lot of different art that like really resonates with our sort of ethos and sort of adventurous side, I guess. And all of the whites that we make we have the art in circles, and that's representative of the sun and the moon and the impact on the vineyards. And then the red wines have the art in the triangle shape, and that is sort of representative of the mountains and their impact on us as people.
Mm-hmm.
And then the blends are kind of a new thing. And so we're not trying to do any more shapes, but basically the art is sort of coming outside the box.
Except they're square. I mean, the blends are definitely square.
Yes, they are square.
Kind of. The art is filling out, so they're in real shape.
They just spill over, but I mean the rectangularness, the 4 even sides and 4 right corners
yes.
Stand out.
So yeah, that's kind of the that's the art story, I guess.
Has the wonderful company come after you yet for having a triangle with only 2 equal size and 1 small one, like an isosceles triangle? Okay.
No, not yet. We're ready for them.
Good. I like that. Nice. Is this digital art, or are they, painting these by hand and photographing, or what's the medium?
I'm guessing. I truthfully don't know their exact art approach. I would imagine it's a combination of both hand sketched design and then overlaid with graphic art, I believe is
nice.
Probably their approach. Yeah.
And is it something where you guys they're producing and you're kind of picking and choosing, or are you commissioning these, or how?
We commission their art.
Okay.
Yeah, we commission their art.
Nice. Yeah. No, it's beautiful, and it definitely it helps really solidify the brand, which is nice. Both the shapes, the colors, the kind of feel to it. So it's well done.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So this blend, just so interesting. The 3 components, is the percentages always around the same of this, or is it something that you play with every year or plan on playing with every year?
Yeah, it's going to be flexible. This is the first time that we've done it. So the point of these blends is to be flexible and to give us a little freedom to kind of make what we want and make an expressive wine out the vineyards that we're farming and opportunities that we have. So yeah, no hard, fast rules or blending requirements.
But will the Sendero, if you make it in the future, always be these 3 grapes, or will you expand into other things? Or
possibly that is probably the plan for this one, is to keep it a roan blend of that sort. But we're trying a new thing where we don't pigeonhole ourselves into hard and fast rules. So TBD, to be determined.
I like it. Very
Yeah.
nice. So Allison teased this earlier, but it sounds like you guys love working with lesser known and uncommon forgotten grapes and have some in barrel or upcoming. So do you want to tease any forthcoming wines you guys have in the hopper or in the barrel?
Sure, yeah. So like Natalie mentioned, we do make a single vineyard, single varietal Vaccarese. So that's definitely one. We also make a handful of kind of weirder grapes. We make a Valdegui as well. So that's
from Shell Creek as well.
Yeah, from Shell Creek. So it's like a really light, fresh, juicy red wine, nice with a chill. It's like a chilled red, kind of juicy, fruity, carbonic red wine.
Yes.
And then other weird grapes, we have Falangina in the cellar right now. It's our first vintage working with that grape. So that's fun. We made it in a skin contact style. So it's kind of a lighter orange wine, I guess, from Falangina. And then Pierre's having a hard time.
Yeah, Pierre, it's clearly either dinner time or cuddle time.
Yeah, exactly. And then we took over a 1 acre vineyard of Sangiovese last year. So we are making Sangiovese now. That's all in barrel in the cellar as well. So I think that's all the sort of lesser common grapes that we're working.
No, those are fantastic. Were these things that you guys sought out, or was it just, opportunities, obviously working with Chenin and Shell Creek, the Valdegui right there, and you mentioned the Sangiovese kind of, falling into your lap?
Yeah, basically just opportunities and interest. Like I said earlier, we were making a skin contact Chenin from Shell Creek and also a regular Chenin from Shell Creek, so it kind of got a little confusing in the marketplace at times. So we still wanted to make a skin contact wine, but not Chenin. So we found this Falangina site, and it has proven to be really interesting with some skin contact. So yeah, kind of like seeking out specific things and also just opportunities.
Very nice. Are there any grapes or varieties that you really would love to work with? Things that you're kind of actively looking for, seeking out?
Yes.
I mean, other than the unicorn California Grenache site.
We would like to make Sauvignon. I mean, it's a grape. We love the Syrah. We are hopefully someday going to plant some Sauvignon. That is a dream and potential reality. So that would be a grape that we're definitely interested in. But as we've said, like we're super curious people. I mean, Italian white varieties are always interesting, and I think really well suited for the San Ynez Valley in particular. The right site for Palomino could be super cool. I mean, we are super open to a lot of varietals if they're in the right site.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I imagine it's tough. I mean, Sauvignon, would you do that in the fully oxidized kind of sherry-esque way that they do it in the Jura?
Probably not. I mean, maybe like a little bit would be kind of fun.
A Vinjon.
But we typically enjoy drinking the topped up versions more than the Vinjon. I mean, different things obviously, but a small amount of that style would be cool, and then the rest, topped up barrels.
Where is Sauvignon planted currently?
There's a couple sites. Raj Par has maybe the most notable site for it up in Cambria.
Yeah,
or
that makes sense. Stolo.
And then there's a vineyard in Edna Valley that's got a little bit. So it's around and there's some in Northern California as well. So yeah, not a lot of it though.
Yeah.
Nice.
But it's in
So-
the Central Coast, so at least it's in your playground.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because I mean it is cool on the Central Coast, but given the Jura's temperatures, it's not exactly where you would imagine it to be. So
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Sauvignon is also a challenging grape to grow in the Jura. I mean, farming in the Jura is very challenging in general. So I mean, you don't know until you try again. Like going back to the beauty of making wine and growing grapes in California is there's no rules. And so, yeah.
I will say these DM corks are fantastic for the little game I play where you can hold a cork sideways and then drop it and have it land on its end like that. So I've been like nearly at a 50% hit rate with that, which is pretty impressive. So this is my ringer cork for my little bar bet that I'm gonna do for folks.
I love the fact that this wine is appealing to people from grilled bacon meatloaf burger to
Yes.
Trader Joe's chocolate chip dunkers.
Exactly.
Very diverse.
I love that.
Jeannie and Mike, would you like to counter anything with the grilled bacon meatloaf burger? Given that you're a resident vegans, like, do you have any other options like a mushroom seitan, fake and bacon loaf?
Well, they did jump in earlier with vegan chicken. Where did I
They
see
did
that?
the chicken a la king. Yes, exactly.
So
Yeah, I think grilled mushrooms would be a great option with this one.
Yeah.
Going the vegan route.
So Stacy has a question, which is if you guys could go back to one place where you worked with grapes, where would you go?
We kind of always go back to France. Yeah, it's just like it's sort of the motherland of inspiration for us in terms of wine and wine culture and community there. It's just like very warm and for whatever reason, just like really resonates with us. So yeah, we go back to France as often as we possibly can. And yeah, that's a place of inspiration for us.
Any particular part of France? Because I mean, at this point, we've hit the Loire, we've hit Burgundy, we've hit the Rhone. Like we're all over the map in France.
That's part of the magic. Is every time we go back, we go explore a new region. This past July, we spent a good amount of time in the Jura and revisited some friends in Burgundy. And I mean, Champagne is incredible. We're excited to go visit Southwest France. I mean, it's kind of endless. Yeah.
You've got the Savoie, so
love the
if
Savoie.
If you come back for a passion for Mondus and Pulsar.
Yeah. Oh, we do have that. Yeah, we love the Savoie. Yeah, so that's part of the magic for sure of France.
Nice. So Matt and Carrie, I hope Matt left the screen because he's going to seek the recipe for the grilled bacon meatloaf burger, which has been requested by others. So as we wrap up here, you guys are in Grover Beach, the #1 winery in Grover Beach. We're just gonna use that as part of your branding at this point, since there are no other wineries in Grover Beach, you are the #1 winery in Grover Beach. If folks are coming up to Paso, hanging out in the Etna Valley or Rio Grande and want to pop over and visit you, what's the best way for them to do that? Or if they want to try some of these other wines, the 100% Vaccarese, the 100% Chenin Blanc, some of the other fun stuff you've got. How can they get in touch with you? How can they come and visit you?
Yeah, we love visitors to the winery. We try to do our best to post our availability for tastings online, but truthfully, the best way is to send us an email and get in touch with scheduling. It's a little bit easier for us.
Pierre says visit him and bring milk bones.
Pierre will be here. Apparently, he is always.
What kind of dog is he? A doodle of some sort?
He's a golden doodle.
Nice.
Yeah, I had my parents burn a doodle over today, and he would sit by me and then just start crying, and I'd look at him and then he'd get all excited, and I'm like, I need to work. Like, stop crying. They do it for attention.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's definitely distracting, but he's a pretty good dog. He's 5 months old, so it's been
Oh,
a
wow.
fun time with him.
Yeah, when our little Chaiwini that we adopted, when Teresa leaves the house and I'm working, he stands at the door frame in my office and just starts barking at me like, bring her back. And he won't stop. It's annoying. Sorry, and I didn't mean to interrupt you guys, but Allison, I know you were over in Europe last weekend when they had one of my favorite things in the world, the big Eurovision competition. I don't know if you watched it or partook in it, but you may have noticed that the third place finisher was a song from Estonia that was called Espresso Macchiato. And I know
Oh,
you have a special dog named Macchiato. So
we have Macchiato who took over for Latte, who came after Cappuccina. So yes,
Yes.
there is a theme of coffee names for the dog.
you may need to download the earworm of a song, Espresso Macchiato, just to sing it to your parents and the dog.
I'm sure you've seen them, but just be ready on Instagram. There are lots of doodle pages that tell you, if you're a doodle owner, what to expect. I don't care what doodle they are. They're all the same. They won't let you, they're just with you constantly. They don't let you go to the bathroom privately. They always want your attention. I mean, it's the cute, and they're sock stealers.
Yeah.
They love socks. Yes.
Chaiwinis are the same thing with being your shadow and not leaving your side. So
Yeah. It's the sock stealing that boggles the mind. There's a pride. It's like every time he takes a sock, I go and he's just sitting in his bed with a sock in his mouth, like, look at me, I'm so good. Or he gets on the bed, he'll take
That's
like
You found that one.
okay, sorry, we were rudely interrupted by my digressing to macchiatos and songs about macchiatos, but visiting you guys in the Grover Beach Central Coast area, email is the best way, and we'll send out your emails tomorrow when we send the replay of this.
Just hello at outwardwines.com is a great way to get in touch. We also have a wine club. We do 2 shipments a year, a 6-pack and a 12-pack that go out twice a year for our spring and fall release. And yeah, what else, Ryan? You can follow us on Instagram. We often post a good amount of PR content, but also our obviously time in the vineyard farming, in the cellar, and also some rock climbing adventures. So
Nice.
you never know what you're going to get.
And you guys do have, it's technically your production facility, your barrel room, kind of all in one, but you do use it as a tasting room so that folks coming up can contact you, set up a time to come visit and taste with you as well.
Yep, it's a private one-on-one tasting with us in our production facility. And yeah, you get it.
And don't forget, because this is a Southern California group, you guys are going to be down here at the end of the month, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we'll be at Rustic Canyon on the 28th.
Yep, next Wednesday.
Wednesday, yeah. Rustic Canyon restaurant, and then Dunsmore.
Dunsmore in LA as well on the 29th.
So
yeah, nice.
Meet them in person.
Very cool. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. If you have not checked your email today, the email for our next our June featured winery went out, which is Denise Cellars, which is actually an importer of Portuguese wines. So we're going to be featuring all Portuguese varietals, all Portuguese wines with Sandra Gomez Rocha, who is an expert on Portuguese wines. She imported these. Very much looking forward to these. So keep an eye out for that and let us know if you're interested. Thank you so much, Natalie and Ryan. We appreciate it. At this point, if you guys can stick around for a few minutes, we'd love for anybody who wants to unmute themselves. If you have any questions or comments that you'd like to ask towards Ryan and Natalie, you can. Or if you guys need to go, let us know. And we're happy to end the call here. It's up to you guys.
Yeah, we're happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Everything was wonderful. I loved it all. I had to stop after 3 for my own safety. And so I wouldn't slur too much at the end. So good. Very impressed. Loved everything. Phenomenal.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm
Jody,
gonna go.
Jody,
I had
you
olives
just
with my
slurred.
dinner tonight. Olives.
Well, that's
Okay.
why you were slurring the word slur. So
Exactly. I had olives.
But I would say the rosé might work with the olives.
It all worked.
Yeah.
It all worked. That's
That
all I
looked-
gotta say.
the
But
Count Franc and the olive should be good.
That
with
looked
the
more like a
Parisians and-
martini.
Yeah,
That looked
that's
more like a
true.
martini than all.
I'm ahead of my time. No, really loved it. Excited to try it again. Phenomenal. But I'm gonna go
thank
before I embarrass myself.
All right. Thanks, Jody.
Thank you.
Bye.
But she really went.
All the wines were phenomenal. We loved them all. I really liked the first one, the white wine. There was a lot of minerals to it. I thought it was phenomenal. I really liked this last one. I mean, I liked them all, but I liked this last wine and the first wine. They were my
They
absolute
like your
favorite.
blends, apparently.
Cool.
Yes.
Matt,
nice.
Yeah.
Matt, the big question is this. What was the best food pairing you had tonight?
That first
The
one.
first one with the shrimp and the yeah, and the
Nice.
first one. Although this burger with this red blend was really good too.
That would be a
That
good
sounds
match.
really
Yeah.
good.
But yeah, when it just changes the entire, like we were enjoying the first one, and then when we had it with the shrimp, it completely we love a complete change when we have.
Mhm.
Very cool.
I've had the pleasure of dining at Matt's house once now, and I can say he is a really good cook.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
I'm a
Thank
little disappointed in the recipe though, because I was expecting it to be like you make a meatloaf with bacon and cheese in it.
Yeah,
and you
no.
slice that, and then you grill it on each side like at a high
No.
heat, just to
It's not
sear
that
and
difficult.
do
No,
that.
but but those meatloaf burgers, we were like, wait, it just has lettuce, tomato, and a bun. There's no sauce. There's no nothing. And his husband and I were like, what? And then we ate it, and it was amazing. It needed nothing. And then with the wine, it was fantastic.
And he's sleeping on the couch now after 4 glasses of wine.
and
Nice.
and 3 burgers apparently. So
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm,
Nice.
delicious. Yeah.
Yeah,
All
all the
right.
wines were so delicious. Where are you guys in Rustic Canyon? Are you doing a wine dinner or just a tasting or?
We're
Yeah.
doing a kind of a bar takeover of the wine list with some of our other winemaking friends that are from this area. Scar the Sea, Lady of the Sunshine, and
nice.
Vive Wines, all some of our best friends who are making, I would say, some of the best wines in Central Coast and in California in general. So yeah, come on out if you can make it.
I cover them all for the slow wine. Well, not Mikey because he doesn't return my calls. So every other year I get him in. But Stacy, we'll have to meet there because Vive Wines, incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, she does a lot more of the Rhone varieties, but really incredible wine.
And Scar of the Sea and Lady of Sunshine are a married couple, and they're doing phenomenal wines. as well.
Delicious,
So,
delicious
yeah.
wine. If you liked the outward wines, you're gonna also like the other 2 wines. I can guarantee.
Yeah, these are fantastic. Is it a ticketed event or making reservations? Like, did I already miss out
Well,
on the opportunity?
Truthfully, I don't know the full details. I'm pretty sure that it's still open for anyone. I would I think probably a reservation if you're gonna go dine there or
Yeah.
whatever would make sense. But
Probably just a regular reservation.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if it was like a special event. I mean, I'm about to Google and look online.
Yeah, I was gonna
also,
say,
and-
go to the Rustic Canyon website, and I'm sure
Yeah,
if
yeah.
it's ticketed, they'll let you know. If it's just like a drop in, do a flight kind of thing, it'll be
Yeah.
on there.
I think it's more casual.
Yeah, it's just like a by the glass takeover.
How many wines are you guys gonna pour there?
That's good.
We don't know the details yet.
okay.
I saw the Dunsmore invite because
It's a good thing it's 6 days away.
Yeah, I mean, we'll
Somebody
know
knows
soon.
the details.
Yeah.
Cameron, who comes to our wine group a lot, sent me the Slow Coast Takeover at the Dunsmore on the 28th, Wednesday. 12 wines by the glass.
Where's the Dunsmore?
Venice.
Oh.
5:30 to 8:30 on Wednesday the 28th. And it doesn't say anything about.
Wait, Wednesday the 28th? I thought that was on the 29th.
Dunsmore is the 28th.
You might be double booked on the 28th.
Yeah, maybe just call the restaurants and ask somebody who knows.
Let me see if Rustic Canyon has anything posted.
But yeah, I know the Dunsmore, LA, 5:30 to 8:30.